President Biden was in his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, pitching his tax plan. The president argued, as he has before, that everyone needs to pay their fair share.
And my plan calls for a minimum federal income tax of 25%, just 25% on billionaires. Well below the top rate, but fair, and they can afford it.
Our Nancy Cordes is covering the president's trip. That means she is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Nancy, great to see you. Walk us through the plan as was outlined by the president today.
Well, Major, we knew that the president was going to focus heavily on creating a contrast between his tax plan and former President Trump's tax plan. It is the day after tax day, after all, when most Americans have now filed their taxes. And basically, he made the case that he doesn't want to raise taxes on anyone who is making less than $400,000 a year, but that he is going to ask billionaires and some corporations to pay more. All of that was no surprise. What did come as a surprise, however, Major, was another argument that the president kind of unveiled here. You know, Pennsylvania is a really important battleground state. It is the biggest battleground state. He won it by just over 1.4 years ago. And he seemed to be making the case today that he is one of them, not only because he grew up in Scranton, but when you talk about values, that he shares Pennsylvanians' values and Donald Trump doesn't. And he brought up Mar-a-Lago, the former president's Florida home in Palm Beach, at least a dozen times in his speech. He kept saying Mar-a-Lago, Mar-a-Lago, trying to create this contrast between his humble roots and the former president's wealth, essentially seeming to try to make the case in this key state and in this city, which is really known for its blue-collar background as an iron and coal town, making the case, I'm one of you, and Trump isn't.
You also spoke to Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro, a eager Biden surrogate, about former President Trump's recent visit to Pennsylvania. Walk us through that conversation.
Well, it's really interesting. We touched on a couple of topics, but perhaps what was most notable was when I asked him about former President Trump's visit to this state over the weekend. Trump got a lot of attention and some mocking, frankly, on the late night shows for a riff that he went on about the most famous Civil War battle that was fought here in Pennsylvania, the Battle of Gettysburg. And as you know better than anyone, Major, the former president likes to go on unscripted riffs during his campaign speeches. Sometimes those riffs are more successful than others. This was kind of an odd one. He said, I'll just quote a little bit of it here, that Battle of Gettysburg, it was so much and so interesting and so vicious and horrible and so beautiful in so many different ways. Gettysburg, wow. And so I asked the current governor of Pennsylvania what he thought about those comments. Take a listen. The former president was in your state this past weekend. He had some interesting comments about the Battle of Gettysburg. What did you make of the way he described it?
This guy is clueless. He's clueless about Pennsylvania. He's clueless about American history. He's someone who doesn't show any respect for our soldiers, any respect for those who came before him, any understanding of whose shoulders that he is seeking to stand on as the next commander-in-chief. He's a guy who's looking out for himself, who doesn't have an appreciation for American history or the direction that we need to take America in. One that has more freedom, not less. One that is more prosperous for the middle class, not less.
As you mentioned, Major, Shapiro is a vigorous supporter of President Biden. He's someone who may have his own presidential ambition someday. Of course, he's going to take the opportunity to slam Trump for his comments here in Pennsylvania, but he did it with a lot of vigor in our conversation. Again, seeming to echo the theme that President Biden was expressing here on the campaign trail today, that Trump is not in step with Pennsylvanians and their views and values.
Nancy, you're at the White House all the time. You know that it is a parlor game for Democrats to parse the president's reelection messaging, how effective it is or isn't. Well, some of that parsing last week came from the former White House Chief of Staff, Ron Klain, who said the president talks too frequently about bridges and not enough about other economic issues. I gather you talked to Governor Shapiro about that as well.
I did, especially because Governor Shapiro is sort of known for the fact that he spearheaded the effort to get a critical overpass that's part of I-95, this major corridor that runs up the Northeast, back and rebuilt after a fire brought it down at the very start of his governorship. And so I asked him what he thought about that very unusual criticism for someone that President Biden is quite close to, his former chief of staff, Ron Klain. They go back decades, but Klain basically said he needs to stop talking so much about bridges and infrastructure. He needs to start talking more about kitchen table issues that Americans are facing. Take a listen. The president's former chief of staff said the other day that he's spending too much time talking about infrastructure and standing at bridges, and that it's just too vague of an issue for many voters. They don't feel it intrinsically, the benefits yet from that infrastructure law. You're someone who is known. One of the big feathers in your cap is getting that overpass rebuilt so quickly. How big of an issue do you think it is for voters?
Well, I can tell you, when I-95 collapsed, a road that takes about 200,000 cars and trucks every single day in Philadelphia, all up and down our eastern seaboard, it disrupted the flow of traffic. It disrupted families. The experts told me it would take months to repair. We got it reopened in just 12 days because of our partnership with President Biden, because he was there for us.
So he thinks it's a potent issue, Major, but I got to tell you, from what we heard from the president today, it sounds like he has gotten the message that Ron Klain was putting out there. Let's talk about infrastructure today, and a lot of sort of Clinton-esque, I feel your pain, I understand what you're going through, and I want to make it better.
With the evolution of the messaging, Nancy Cordes in Scranton, thanks so very much.